Hey folks, good evening. Professor Finn here, everyone's favorite funeral service educator and homeless mall Santa. And look what I'm rocking tonight, man. Let me tell you what, I am so delighted that I found this. So, what you're looking at is prime Professor Finn garbage here. I was able to find a Disney bus driver's hat as well as a 1980s Disney security guard, and it just bolts right into the front. The badge bolts right into the front, and I'm just like, hell yeah, dude! I'm going to do my own hat this time. So absolutely awesome to rock this. Throwing back to my roots, the security guard. I still have my security license, and shout out to all the Paul Blart mall cops and gate attendants out there. It's a thankless job. Appreciate you. Been there, done that, and if it wasn't for people like you, hey man, I wouldn't feel safer at night, right? Hint, hint. So, Laura, hey, it's okay. Thanks for dropping into the chat. Have a safe flight. We'll catch you next time, and have fun in Brisbane, man. The Body World Expo sounds like a blast. Too bad I can't be doing that. We're tightening our belts there at work this time around to close out the year, hopefully in the positive. So I'm not going to be doing any travel, let alone world travel. That would really be awful. So, couple fun things I want to do tonight is one of the criticisms, because hey, I'm going to get criticism because it's my channel and I'm me. Is I don't do enough educational content during my Fridays with Finn, so that we'd sit here and we talk about stuff that's actually relevant to funeral service education, relevant to the classroom, right? So, one thing I'm going to dive into, because I don't have it already on the channel, is I'm going to dive into a casket lecture, the interior parts of a casket. This seems to be causing a lot of confusion. I will be hopefully recording a merchandising playlist here shortly in the next couple of months or so. I did finish microbiology, and I think I'm going to work on history next. Like, as much as I want to do the micro stuff, I really want to do the funeral service history stuff, the history of American funeral directing lectures that I had, just because, hey man, that appeals to all sorts of people, not just to people who want to study, but hey, you want to learn how we funeralized. Well, here's one of the biggest texts that we have on this, and away we go. Tiff, hey, hey, girl. So, folks, I'm gonna jump on the political soapbox here for a second and say I'm very, very disappointed in the United States that we are hurting for people in our profession, and we have qualified people, maybe from abroad, who come in and can do the job well, go through our education, get licensed in our states, and then basically told, hey, have a nice day back home. So I am very, very sorry that we will be losing one of our best and one of our brightest. Our loss is certainly going to be the UK's gain. So, love the fact that you stopped in. Absolutely disappointed in the way things turned out. I'm hoping maybe in the future that can be turned around. We can get you back in the States, especially as even more people get out of the industry and we start having even more of a critical shortage. But on the bright side, at least when I visit the UK, I know I got some peeps over there I can stop in and say hi. So, first things first, let's go ahead. Oh, some other exciting and cool news. I am sorry to say that we are going to say goodbye to one of the bestest people that has been part of this channel since the beginning, and that is my 27-inch iMac from 2015. Finally, Bill Gates decided to go ahead and pull life support on Microsoft Teams that was supported by my Mac, and I can't update to the latest Mac OSs, which would support the latest version of Teams. So I finally had to pull the trigger. You can see the white box right in back of me. We're going to be setting up a Mac studio in here over the weekend. As you can imagine, I'm super excited about that, because I absolutely, absolutely detest setting up computers. Once a year, I go through and I wipe my stuff just to keep it clean, keep the garbage off, that sort of stuff. And I dislike doing that. Setting up a whole new one and having to copy all my crap over and then update all the software, dude, I'm telling you, this weekend's going to be like pulling teeth. But that's the first time I've had to do this since, I think I got that 2015 iMac right in 2016. So almost 9 years, 10 years I've had that computer. And it's working like a champ. Like, that's the other thing that upsets me is that this computer works fine. I don't know why I just can't update my Mac OS because, it's 10 years old. But it is what it is. I am going to also be rotating the iMac out because that means I'm losing the monitor because, the all-in-ones are great. So actually somewhere in here, right over there actually, I've got a new monitor. It's going to be the same exact thing, HP 532S or FS. So just another 32-inch monitor. For whatever reasons, I like them. The HP 32s have served me well. I'm not going to be doing any hardcore gaming or anything, so no OLED for me. But we're going to have a pretty updated studio. Also got this thing set up today. We got a new tabletop over here. That's going to help with a couple of different projects and things I'm going to be doing going forward. So, yeah, let's dive into this little lecture here. Get the screen shared. There we go. So, let's play from current slides. There's probably 2 or 3 different books out there for merchandising that you could use. There's Funeral Directing and Funeral Service Management by Clicker. He's got some merch stuff in there. There's Funeral Service Merchandising by Philip de Armand. It's an older book, but I gotta admit, it's an oldie and goodie. I like it. I think Larry Cleveland has a merchandising book. I can't keep track of all the stuff that's out there. But for the most part, this is taken from the Philip de Armand book and Ralph Clicker's book because I think this was before Larry Cleveland, God rest his soul, published his books. So went out, plagiarized a bunch of pictures, and dropped them in here. So first up, we got the cap panel. And you might say, well, Professor Finn, why do we even learn this stuff? Like, what does it matter what these things are called? And it comes out to brand knowledge and rapport with your customers. So I'm telling you that I'm looking for something like a mobile office. I love my truck. Okay, I love my Ram 1500. I recently drove to a leadership retreat that we had with all the Pierce Mortuary College Incorporated executive leadership in Jeffersonville, Indiana. We visited our Mid-America campus. That was a wonderful experience to hang out with my peeps, get to meet some of them physically for the first time. That was cool to meet my chief information officer and meet my chief financial officer for the first time face-to-face. Like, really awesome. And after that, I drove to Chicago for another business meeting. And generally speaking, my idea of a happy drive is about 8 hours. I can do between 10 to 14, but that's kind of pushing it at that point. I'm one of these folks that I don't mind the drive. I actually love driving, seeing stuff on the side of the road, maybe a vegetable vendor, fruit vendor or something, some person selling honey locally. Hey, shop local if you can. So I love driving. And on the way back from Chicago, the exhaustion finally caught up with me a little bit. Now, that was a rough 14-hour drive. So I'm thinking about getting something like not really a camper van, but something like a stealth camper. Just something where if I want to crash, I can jump in the back, take a quick nap at a rest stop, jump back in the pilot seat, and I'm gone. And if I am traveling, maybe have enough space for a little workstation in there with monitors and whatnot, because I absolutely detest working in hotel rooms. Like, I hate it. I don't have 2 or 3 monitors. I've tried to explore using virtual reality goggles, whether it's something like the Meta Quest or something where it's just basically a fancy headset that basically is a computer display. I just don't like them. I like having my monitors. I like having a setup. It's Professor Finn problems. So I'm looking at doing something like that. And as I'm watching all these videos, I'm getting product knowledge. I know what things are called. I know the different types of classes now of recreational vehicles. I know the different brands. So when I go and actually start shopping for something like this in the next 2 or 3 years, probably, I'm going to be able to understand what the salesman is talking about and, hopefully not get taken advantage of, because that's just the thing. Having product knowledge makes you a better consumer, makes you a more dangerous consumer. So as a funeral director, when you are talking with your clients and you're showing them, this nice, $8,000, $10,000 box, you should be calling things by their proper names to, again, this is what something is, this is my knowledge of the product that I sell, and hence, I am worth the value of my basic service as a funeral director and staff. So this is one of the reasons why we learn these things. So the cap panel is the focal part of the interior which fills the inside of the crown, the uppermost part of the lid. And these days, cap panels have all sorts of variations. It used to be back in the day when Professor Finn roamed the earth and we killed brontosaurs with our teeth, we would be able to order one of the custom embroidered panels from the manufacturer, and if it wasn't in the catalog, you weren't going to get it. Well, then some people started doing silk screening, and then some people started doing custom embroidery work, and then some people just started doing all sorts of crazy stuff. So nowadays, you can get some pretty cool cap panels. One of the many ways you can personalize a casket for the specific person. A full couch casket is a casket fully open, head and foot. You lift the lid, it's all one piece, and there it is. You can have different types of inserts for these things. Generally, these are something like a Midwest and even maybe like the Northeastern United States. They're quite common. I'm telling you, in Florida, Pinellas County, where I came from, I probably didn't see a full couch casket the entire time I was in practice, and I sure as heck didn't sell one. Sold some really nice caskets, just they were always half couch, which is this guy right here. And as you can see, the bottom panel is closed. This is something that most of us see in media when we're looking at funerals. Again, not a big deal. They are what they are. There's not really a huge price differentiation. It's just because you have a top and a bottom, there might be some different names for things. So here's your head panel, and I did make a mistake. I called the head panel, the cap panel, something different. So this panel is a component part of the casket interior, which is inside the head portion of the cap. No distinction is made between the head panel and foot panel in a full couch casket because it is all one piece. The foot panel would be the one underneath, and on the more inexpensive caskets, you're lucky if it even has something in there that makes it look like you want to open that bottom part. So some of these modern caskets are just ridiculously cheap looking with no cloth. It's really just cardboard with a print on it to make it look like cloth. Like, I got to admit, man, it looks pretty tacky. Keep that thing shut. Your inner panels are right there, sometimes called a cap panel insert, whatever you're going for. Again, these come in dozens and dozens and dozens of different things now. If you can't find it from your supplier, there is likely someone in your state or someone in another state that can overnight something to you for exactly what you want. Again, one more way you can personalize the casket. And, from strictly a business standpoint, you're looking at, I don't know, probably between somewhere between 50, 60 bucks of profit if you actually sell one of these things. So from a business standpoint, every little bit helps these days in the industry of declining profits. So hinged panels, a single hinged panel, a casket in which the cap is in two pieces. The rim and the foot panel is one piece, which is hinged to the top body molding, and the head panel being the second piece is hinged to the rim. You literally take a portion of the lid off, and then you can see inside the casket. So what you're seeing here, and I'm hoping, not working. This is bad news. Let's see if we can get the pen working here. I'm going to be so happy when I get the new computer set up, because it's looking like it doesn't want to connect. So I'm not going to be able to use the pen to do this. So mouse, away we go. That's really annoying. Try one more time. Yeah, I can't disconnect it without causing some serious problems. So we'll just go over here. You have the thing you view right here. So you can remove this top portion where you see that there is a Mogen David, a Star of David. But you can also remove this portion right here all the way to the base. And the way, just lift it right off. Usually it's wooden pegs or something like that. And that's how you get the body in there. You take the entire top off, you drop the body in there, and then you go ahead and you place the frame back on, and then you can take the panels off for an actual viewing of the body. So in perfection, full couch and half couches, we'll get into that here. A perfection full couch, there are still some places that use the term perfection. Largely, I think that word has exited our vocabulary as funeral directors, but generally they are formed from one piece of metal at the same exact time. They're not made in different pieces and then added together. It's all done at once. And the half couch, once again, is here. And again, a perfection half couch back in the day, they were created as one unit. Nowadays, mass production, they may produce tops and bottoms and frames underneath, and they just add shells and adjust as necessary. They weren't created as one thing. And that's what this slide basically tells you. So now you have the roll, the component part of the casket interior which lines the rim and surrounds the cap panel, also known as the cove or the puffing. I would probably say roll and cove would be my preferred way of talking to a client about this. Puffing seems to be, I don't know, not the most professional type of term, but I used roll. That was the term that stuck out to me. I think cove is a good second. Next to that, you have the gimp, which is the strip of metal, plastic, or cloth that is attached to the inside of the panel, covering the area at which the roll is anchored. So you see the two yellow arrows. It literally is that black line right there. And again, wish I had the pen working instead of the mouse, but it is what it is. I would not use the term gimp when talking with people. I would absolutely use the word fold. Throws should not be a hard one, ladies and gentlemen. That is the little blanket thing that hangs over. Okay, it's also known as an overlay or overthrow. I only ever use the word throw. Maybe I used overlay here and there, but I like the word throw. And also, it is something that people can relate to because we have throws that go on sofas and things like that. And if you don't have a flag or something already, getting one of those quilts, getting a throw from the house, that is something that just adds a bit more personalization to the ceremony that you're dealing with. The apron is the section right here. It's the part that hangs down into the casket, also known as an overlay skirt. And really, the only thing that this serves is people having to look down and see anything in the foot of the casket, especially if there's no shoes or something like that. So again, it helps hide the dark space in the casket on a half couch casket. On a full couch casket, you will not have a throw or an apron like that. It would be over the person unless you have an insert. And someone might say, well, you know, what if it is a full couch and you have something? Well, just call it what it is. If it looks like the apron on a half couch casket and it's coming in off of the insert, it's probably going to be an apron. There's no special terminology if you happen to drop this in a full couch casket. Here's your extend over, the portion of the casket interior which extends over the top body molding for aesthetic value. And again, this makes the casket look nice. This is also that place where if you're not paying attention when you're doing cosmetizing, that you're going to get stuff all over that. It's also when you're transporting, you want to take some care to make sure that you're protecting that in some way, shape, or form so that you don't get makeup. And God help if you put flowers in this because you want to transport the flowers inside the casket. That's just a recipe for disaster. But if you want to do it, knock yourself out. The bed really doesn't need any explanation. It's the part that the body lays on. Can be adjustable, can be stationary, depends on the type of casket or coffin that you're working with, what you're going to be playing with. Mattress cover, then body lining, the material that covers the inside perimeter of the body of the casket. It's what you see there. It's pretty self-explanatory. Now, the skirt. The portion of the casket interior, cascade, that's cute, gotta love voice recognition, covering the hinges that attaches the cap casket to the casket body, usually extends from the roll and becomes a part of the body lining, also known as a hinge cover. So you have lining, which is this part right here, and then you have the skirt, which is covering all the hardware such as the hinges, so it doesn't look unsightly. Now, what's important to understand, this is not the item that is going to cover the arm of the casket, okay? This hides the actual hinges that hold the cap in place, okay? If you need help with what the pillow is, just going to probably say that maybe funeral service isn't for you. It is the bag that is usually stuffed with rather cheap material, used to support the head of the deceased. This is why when you are embalming a body, you have a head block under it, because of the fact you do not wish to have the body dropping back, causing problems with fluid coming out of the mouth, etc. And if you've embalmed a body well, at least, back in the days before super pharmaceuticals, you could take a head block away and that head would just stay right where it is and the pillow would be there, which could create some really interesting situations if the pillow wasn't fluffy enough, because then the head would be literally laying off of the pillow and you'd be trying to gimmick some way, stuffing things under the pillow to make it look like the pillow and the head is resting on the pillow. The blanket is the piece of fabric used to cover the body of the deceased, especially the lower legs, when displayed in a full open couch or a full couch casket. So what you see here is you have a full couch casket that has an insert. Okay, you have an insert right here. So if this was all fabric, okay, not just the overthrow here, not just the overlay, you would have it covering all the way down to the feet. So we're going to go ahead and stop with the interior parts, because now it's going to start talking about the different types of material and styles, and we'll save that for the next time. I think 30 minutes of a refresher is good enough. And for the next time, I'll be sure to go in here and look at the slides. I mean, this was one of my largest lectures when I did teach merchandising. You can see I've got 236 slides in this lecture. It talks about every single aspect of the caskets, how they're created, their construction, the materials they're made out of, the types of casket, types of interiors, oversized caskets, how to measure, all of it is in there. So it's a fairly comprehensive one. It's one I want to get on the channel sooner rather than later. I was drifting through the Funeral Director Daily. There's some pretty cool stuff to talk about. Let's just go ahead and pay some respects, though. This week, the 80s has died a little bit more, unfortunately. So we lost Ozzy Osbourne earlier in the week, and then Hulk Hogan a day later. Got to admit, listened to Ozzy's music, but was never really a raging fan of Ozzy. Like, oh my God, I got to see him in concert. And that's me missing out, because I hear his concerts were phenomenal. But Hulk Hogan, man, I'm telling you, I was growing up during that revived golden era of wrestling, when Hulk Hogan made wrestling what it was, the spectacle that it became. I get that when you get into the wrestling historians, people want to throw some shade that direction, because realistically, Andre the Giant was the person that kind of put wrestling on the map because of just who he was. And then all the wrestlers that came after that were kind of riding on his coattails, and some people may disagree with that. But Andre was the guy that basically was a huge draw. And then the torch was passed basically to Hulk Hogan, who then likely, we could argue, passed that torch over to Undertaker. I remember when Undertaker first debuted, at least the Undertaker character. So losing Hulk Hogan was a massive blow to my childhood. Yeah, we've lost one of the Road Warriors. We've lost one of the Bushwhackers. Of course, we lost Macho Man. We've lost the Ultimate Warrior. Like so many of the wrestlers that I grew up, just my favorites, the Iron Sheik, Rowdy Roddy Piper, all those guys. But losing Hulk was kind of like the glue that pulled all that together. No matter who you liked or didn't like, or when he turned heel or went babyface, Hulk Hogan was was pretty important to wrestling, and then to I'm gonna say it, man. U.S. culture in general, like our pro wrestlers, they they breach that. A lot of them step out of wrestling into other areas, and maybe Hulk Hogan didn't quite have the career that, say, Dwayne the Rock Johnson is having, or maybe even some of the movies that Stone Cold Steve Austin is doing. But Hulk was responsible for a lot of that, and if I don't think it was for Hulk Hogan, that we probably wouldn't have the spectacle and popularity that would be something like the World Wrestling Federation or World Wrestling Entertainment, whatever the hell it's called now. So sorry to lose him. Also, we lost some talented musicians. We lost a phenomenal jazz trumpist. Oh God, I can't remember Mangione's first name. Um, but again, one of the essential musicians. If you're into jazz, this guy was a staple forever and ever and ever. So just so many people from my time as a child and as a young man are starting to fade, and that's a bit sad. Digging in to what is of interest here, um, I was interested to see this. So again, I haven't read through these. I had actually Chrome up when my computer decided to crash and I lost all my damn tabs. So I'm just gonna do this the old-fashioned way of just scrolling down page by page when we find something. Um, let's see what Tom's talking about today. We recently printed an article that brought attention to the fact that Batesville and Tukios made a deal that, at least from my point of view, allowed Batesville to concentrate on its core business of caskets, cremation products, and software solutions. Isn't that crazy? I remember Batesville was just caskets and, maybe some cremation merch. And now everyone's trying to have a software solution. So Batesville has the Meaningful Memories Planner, or whatever it's called now. Aurora had the Aurora Ranger, whatever it's called. Now, again, I've been out of the game for a while. The director's assistant, they still produce, that's still being produced as a software package. I think it's pretty easy, especially if you're my age, to have the perception that the core of Batesville is casket sales and increasingly cremation product sales, especially alternative containers. And I would argue that most businesses that look to Batesville for solutions looked in those two categories, at least until they get more familiar with the company. However, when potential clients look to traditional funeral homes, what is the core product or feature that makes them call the funeral home? What are they looking for? And is that item changing as time moves on? That's a hell of a good question, and I would say the answer to that question is yes. I think it does change, and over time, the core business of the person taking care of the dead in America has been fluid. For instance, if you could go back to the old West days of the United States, the core business of an undertaker was to build a wooden box for the casket, dig the grave, and transport the deceased in the box to the grave. That's what people expected when they contacted the undertaker. And yeah, I'd say that's pretty damn accurate. Essentially, undertakers built facilities, and at least part of the core business was to provide a place for the reception of guests for the grieving family to receive. And that's just right out of the history book, that funeral homes evolved from people having nice homes so that all guests could be accommodated. And we see towards the end of the 1800s, beginning of the 1900s, really that is the birth of a funeral home as we know it, a stand-apart facility solely for the purpose of grieving the dead and having services, rather than someone's really nice house that you could have a nice little spread at and everyone could greet the guests. Eventually, undertakers built facilities, at least part of the core business was to provide a place for the reception of guests for the grieving family to receive. During that time and for the better part of the entire 20th century, the core business also included the funeral home guiding the family through the entire process, which included embalming, sale of a casket, the visitation, funeral service, and graveside. I think it was also hard to define your business core at this time on the perception of your clientele. While your business was much more than selling a casket, many families would say they had to go to a funeral home not to facilitate the funeral, but to buy a casket. That's absolutely true. In essence, they didn't seem to perceive or understand all that the funeral home did and supplied. Eventually, in the latter part of the 20th century, cremation associations, cremation-only businesses started to come into existence. I think at the time, death care perception changed, an additional core business in death care was born. Those businesses developed a core that was perceived by the consumer as cremation. Many clients still needed and want additional services such as a memorial service, but a certain and growing niche of customers considered cremation as the core of the business that they were contacting for death care services. Which is interesting, right? Because we look at funeral home signs and they'll say funeral services and or funerals and cremation services. Why is there a distinction? Um, that's one of those things that needs to disappear. Cremation, burial is disposition. How you grieve the dead, memorialize the dead, that is the service aspect. Moving into the current environment of death care, we have niches that want the consumer to select them for their services by their core business. Some of those are cremation businesses, natural organic reduction businesses, alkaline hydrolysis businesses, and flameless cremation businesses. Event centers for services, online urn and jewelry sales, niche products like Better Place Force and Parting Stone, and on and on. So, if you operate a traditional funeral home, how do you position the core perception of your business so that potential clients think of you not only for traditional casketed funerals and cremation services, but all of the options that are now becoming available to the public? The way I look at it from a consumer perspective is that there are lots of issues surrounding the death of a loved one. People move out of home communities more often today than ever before. Maybe those people need advice on returning a loved one to a faraway community for burial. People, as we mentioned above, also have disposition and memorialization options that they never had before. Many people want to know the cost and possibly set aside money for future obligations more so than in the past. I don't know exactly how I would do so, but as I look to the ever expanding death care choices that consumers now have, I would want to position my core businesses as a death care solution center. And I think some of the funeral homes that are advocating for community death cafe discussion times are on the right track to doing that. A death care solution center could position a business to offer an optionality to those that call on them. As the public continues to realize and understand that there is more to death care than caskets and cremation, this core competency should position a funeral home to be on the front end of helping consumers decide the specifics of their future death care plans. In my way of thinking, positioning your business for success is all about how you get that potential client to look to you for your trusted advice and competence before they look somewhere else. And the proper perception of what you do in their mind will help them get to you. So this is an excellent article that really makes you think. So let's put Professor Finn's take on this. The first thing is you have to change the perception you're coming to buy boxes and buying merchandise. You're going to compete with the warehouses, the casket monument places, the freestanding ones and whatnot. I don't think that needs to be your core. Your core has to be service. It needs to be you're the concierge. You're the one that's putting it all together. Now, what I've seen an advent of is individuals who don't quite have funeral homes, but they advertise themselves as a funeral service concierge, and they will be your advocate to find a funeral home and then work with that funeral director to put on services, etc., etc., etc. So I do see some folks doing that sort of thing. Some of them are licensed, some of them are not, and they're not advertising themselves as funeral directors. Again, they advertise themselves as an advocate or a concierge service who then comes in to make sure that your wishes are fulfilled. And I am telling you, if someone like that comes into your funeral home and starts bossing your ass around, you toss them right out the damn door and you trespass them. Because ultimately, a person pretending to be a licensee is not a good thing for you, not from a liability perspective. If it is a licensed person that is coming in and then stepping in to play funeral director over you because of their concierge service, I think you need to sit them down and have an honest conversation. It can only work one of two ways. They can either be the funeral director and you can pay them as an independent contractor, right, a renter director, or they can disappear and go somewhere else. Because when you have two people that are responsible, let's be honest, the person that's coming in and bossing you around and doing things, if they do something wrong, it's still going to be the funeral director in charge of that facility that is going to be held responsible for those actions. They're allowing that to happen under their roof. So you can't have these competing interests of, I'm a concierge and I'm a funeral director and this is what you're going to do. Listen, if you want to be in charge, you be in charge. and you take the liability and you be the funeral director, and all I'm going to do is charge for a hall rental. But you're not going to come into my business, make me write up a contract, you take a percentage because you don't want to have a facility and you want to play funeral director. Um, there are some people that um, I've had some students that operate something like a concierge service, and the states really don't know how to look at that. Generally, they look at that very unfavorably because they view that as practicing funeral directing and running a business without a funeral home. And that is very dangerous because those fines are very expensive. Funeral directors can only operate out of funeral homes, and you cannot be running a funeral home out of your kitchen um, because you have to have a funeral establishment license to be able to arrange. So it's kind of like you can go to a person's house to make arrangements and do things, but at some point in time, the state has to have a physical location it can come to and inspect your records and do all those sort of things. And there's usually minimum requirements for size, the type of equipment you have, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's going to differ state to state. Make sure you know what the laws in your state are so that you do not run foul of something like that. And for those of you that are thinking, hey, this concierge thing sounds like a good idea, I'm telling you, that is inviting some disaster from a liability situation. And one of the quickest way I'd get you out of my building if you tried playing that game is I would ask for a copy of your liability insurance each and every time you showed up to do this to make sure that you had liability insurance. Because if something goes wrong, I'm absolutely going to make sure that any litigation gets added to your name and that you have proper insurance coverage to cover your percentage of the error that happened. So again, not a big fan of those concierge things. You want to do that, play renter director, much safer. Jumping over to the chats, Laura says, come to Perth, Australia. I'll tell you what, wouldn't mind doing it at some point in time. I do have a plan to visit Australia sometime on my bucket list. So I don't know if that's going to be next year, 5 years, 10 years. But for sure, I need to come to Australia because I want to see Sydney. I want to see the Sydney Opera House. I want to say I've been there at least once. I got to be honest, mostly because I want to come see the Opera House. The other thing is, being a Mason, I hear the Grand Lodge of Australia building is something to behold. I hear it's really, really, really nice. Um, I am looking forward to seeing that. I had a client many years ago, and her husband was a Mason. They went there, and she was describing the Grand Lodge building because she was a matron of the Eastern Star. So this is a Masonic family, and just absolutely, I want to go visit. I want to see the Grand Lodge of Australia. I hope they still have the same building. They're not having to sell it or something like that. Like so many lodges are closing across the world because membership's just dying off and people aren't interested. Here we go. This is one that's of spice to me, which is the guaranteed versus non-guaranteed funerals and how everyone was, plugging for guaranteed and now people are plugging for non-guaranteed because the longer it takes, the more you might get burned. I think there's still a discussion about guaranteed versus non-guaranteed pre-need funeral contracts. Although I would argue that for the past decade or so, the vast majority of pre-need accounts sold by funeral homes are guaranteed. Absolutely. By that I mean the services and merchandise is picked out at pre-arrangement time and fully funded by a life policy of that face value. As time passes and the account holder dies, the funeral provider, who also did the pre-arrangement, provides those services for the value of the death benefit at the time of death with no additional charges to the consumer pre-need client, right, except for non-guaranteed cash advances. That has seemed to work very well, and depending on the state laws were written, a funeral director may get more or less than his current charges for the services. In some states, he may not be able to keep any overage, and any value of the policy above his funeral statement for services rendered must be sent to the named secondary beneficiary. Yeah, and those are the states where I would say absolutely don't do non-guaranteed. Um, I think it is ridiculous that, well, there's two aspects to this. The first is When you perform services, when you write the contract for the services at need, even if a pre-need is in place, one of the things that I've heard Chris Farmer say, and he's the general counsel for National Funeral Directors Association, and I've also attended some FTC workshops. Um, Recently, there was a workshop where Chris was hosting, one of the staff attorneys for the Federal Trade Commission that handles these things. And every training I've ever seen about the FTC is the numbers on your general price list need to match the at need contract. So when you have a pre need that was made 10 or 15 years ago and you're writing up the contract on the at need basis, you should not be putting the 10-year-old prices. You need to be putting the prices that match your current general price list, right? When a pre-need family comes in on an at-need basis, you must present them a price list at that time, whether it was 10 years ago or 10 days ago or 10 hours ago. Just because they got a general price list on a pre-need basis, the FTC funeral rule as it stands now says you must give one on the at-need moment, even if it's probably the same one. So I would just hand it to them as a matter of course for their retention, even though they already have one, because I don't want to deal with that one secret shopper that's going to come in and say, oh, well, you needed to give one because now I'm going to. Yeah, right? Not going to happen. They're not going to make that type of easy money on me. So you're going to write that contract, and then you're going to get the death benefit. You're going to call the insurance company, you're going to call the trust, whatever it is. And then what you're going to do is you're going to discount the current arrangement to what the cost of what the death benefit is. Now, if there is an overage from that, where the growth was so good that it actually got ahead of inflation, then yeah, you're going to return that to the family, because that's not, if they walked in the door and wanted to buy it right now, that's more money than what you have. So makes no sense to think otherwise. I'm sure there are some states out there that are like, oh no, you have to write that price up at the way it is. And hey, if that gets you in trouble with the FTC, you just point right to the state and say, well, that's not the way they want us to do it here. You have a discussion with the licensing authority or whoever's responsible for it. So I don't think you should ever, unless your state requires it, be writing the old prices on a statement of goods and services. You should always be writing your current prices and then discount the value to whatever the death benefit is. So at least in those states, a funeral provider may have to guarantee goods and services that could have a higher value at death than the proceeds of the policy. And I think that's rare. I'm just going to jump out on a limb and say I think that is very, very rare. That works out as a discount by the funeral provider. On the other hand, the funeral home can never take an overage, so a number of contracts he probably has discounts because of underinflationary growth that are never offset by gains on the other side. True, which is probably why you should price yourself competitively enough to kind of figure out that, hey, this $8,000 15 years from now probably going to grow by maybe 10%. Is that the right price I want to be doing it for? For most funeral homes, that method works just fine, and the idea of having a pre-need account on the books and the commission is generated when put in place may make up for the number of discount funerals that happen. In Minnesota, where I worked, the law required that the beneficiary of a pre-need policy be any funeral home as their interest may appear, which meant we could only be paid as primary beneficiary, the amount of our statement. In essence, we never received an overage, but if the pre-need policy was guaranteed, we could be underpaid. It also allowed the consumer pre-need client a bag of money that was not tied to a certain funeral home. That was handy. That was a handy sales tool when dealing with seniors who may be thinking about moving to a southern state or as they got older to the community of their children. It allowed them a bag of money in their pre-arrangement account that was portable. Yeah, but ultimately, if you have a policy, especially an insurance policy, there's always a transferability for insurance. Trusts are a bit more of a pain in the butt, but you just contact your insurance company and change the funeral home and it's done. Like, if you move, that's the logical thing, and that's what consumers. That's exactly what you should do. Okay, you should say, "Hey, I got a prearrangement in Wisconsin or Minnesota. I've moved to Florida, and when I die, the funeral homes will figure it out." That's exactly the wrong attitude to have. You need to sit down with a funeral home in Florida to determine if, one, you can find someone who will do it for the price of that payout and write a contract and take that assignment, or you might need to start worrying about putting something aside to assist with those expenses in case the growth isn't high enough. Remember, the prices are guaranteed for the firm in Minnesota, Wisconsin, wherever. They're not guaranteed for Florida, and the Florida firm doesn't have to go, "Oh, you have a contract, I'm obligated to take it." Now, you can go pound sand. We're not going to do a traditional funeral for $850. Like, it's just not going to happen. You call your funeral home in Minnesota and have them try to figure out how this is going to work. Again, as to guaranteed pre-needs, they generally work very well and are probably not a financial issue unless, like recently, you have a very high inflation rate for a period of time and a fixed low interest rate growth pre-need product. And some costs you just cannot control, such as utilities, property taxes, the cost of steel or lumber and casket manufacturing, the cost of concrete and vault manufacturing. In essence, you can try to control costs, but not all are controllable by you. So what does that mean on guaranteed funeral prearrangements? For our assumptions, let's say a pre-need client has a workup of exactly $9,000 for the services she wants to prearrange. Furthermore, we will say for a one-time premium of that amount, the insurer adds $1,000 of face value to that policy. So the policy starts at $10,000 of face value and has an annual 2.5% growth rate on the $10,000 face value, which came with a $9,000 single premium. That policy in 10 years will have an appreciated face value of $12,800. If you run the inflationary numbers on $9,000 of merchandise and services and profit for the same 10 years, if your inflationary cost went up 3% annually, you would have a cost of service of $12,095. 4% annually, you have a total cost of $13,222, and at 5%, you would have a cost of service of $14,660. And at death, you provide the services that cost you, including profit, that much, and receive the $12,800 in full payment from the policy. As you can see from our small illustration, on one potential account, the average annual inflationary costs probably have to get above 4% to create a loss of margin large enough to worry about. In our example, that 4% is about 1.5% higher than the insurance companies crediting the policy. Our example does show the importance of receiving some insurable additional value to the policy in order to make this work stress-free. For instance, our example case adds $1,000 of face value to the $9,000 single premium. Without that bonus, the face value, compounding at 2.5% annually for 10 years, would only be worth about $11,520. The lack of the additional bonus insurance, many times called a bump in the death care world, would increase the odds of a deficit between the funeral home's actual cost and the insurance benefit provided. Well, I'm going to push back on that and say, if you think that is the case, run the math and determine what you need to be charging on your pre-need to make things happen like that. By the way, as you can find with this inflation calculator here, in this time of higher than average inflation, a purchase of $100 in 2020 would cost $124 in 2025, which is an annual average inflation of basically 4.5%. Do guaranteed funeral pre-need accounts work in high inflationary times? That is truly a question that has to be answered by each death care provider owner. Again, one has to weigh the benefits of securing a future death call with the potential for getting a lower than inflationary return on the sale cost. And each individual owner will have their own anxiety levels on the level of discounted funerals they execute. There is no right or wrong decision on operating your pre-need department with guaranteed or non-guaranteed policies. However, making sure you know the math and the ramifications of that math is essential in providing the best possible scenario for your funeral home. Well, yeah. I remember seeing on social media a while back, someone posted a comment that said, another day passed where I haven't used C times V equals C1 times V1. Well, if you didn't do any embalming, that is true. You never used it. If you did do embalming, you used it. You just didn't compute it to see what your numbers were and, if they meet the minimums. That's a big difference. There is the act of doing it to make sure that what you're doing is, keeping your head above water if something should go south. And then there is the act of just ignoring it and not doing it at all because you're literally not embalming. So pick which one you're going to do. If you're embalming, you're using it, even if you're not computing it and using it the way you should. Same thing here. If you are a business owner and you're trying to make your decisions of where you want your business to go, these are the things you need to be thinking about as an owner. And unfortunately, these aren't the things that they ask you on a board exam, so you're not going to learn that in mortuary school. You might need to get that through a 4-year degree. Maybe a 4-year degree in funeral management pops up in the future. Who knows? There's that thing about Tukios and Batesville. Y'all can read that if you want. This looks interesting, probably because people don't want to hurt themselves. I never know what will catch my eye as I peruse articles that I believe may contain information that will be helpful to the business operators of funeral homes, crematories, pre-need agencies, and cemeteries. Just the other day, I was reading this article from Cedar Rapids, Iowa Gazette, which included comments that now contain the statements, "The industry has changed. It's now over 75% female." Well, yeah, probably not wrong, but there are still probably some pretty heavy markets that are male dominated, especially in rural areas. Had a conversation with a former student of mine at a place that I taught, and basically frozen out of the workforce because she's a she. Um, the other thing that kind of I guess bites me about that is the modern practitioners. When you come out of school, we're telling you how to provide good service to a family. And that is not reconcilable sometimes with the 1950s model of arranging, where you just do the same exact thing every single time. You offer no variety. You walk like you walk on water because you're the funeral director. And, there's only one way it's done. The problem is that only lasts as long as no one is willing to open up competition down the street and offer a different product. Generally speaking, one of the most fascinating industries that I find is fast food. The amount of effort that is made to determine proper locations for maximum profit with the least amount of competition. And the I guess the rumor, the myth, the legend, the truth, whatever it might be, where McDonald's opens something, give it about a month and a half, and you're probably going to find a Burger King, a Taco Bell, and other people opening their stuff. Well, here in Texas, we got a couple of different burger joints. So we won't get into the boutique burger joints because everyone and their dog has like a gastropub that offers, Wagyu beef formed into a patty that's been hand rubbed by virgins in New Zealand. We're just going to talk about the pull up, order something that remotely looks like meat. It gets put on something that looks like bread, and away you go. So here in Texas, you got your McDonald's, you got your Burger King, you got your Freddy's, you got your Whataburger, you got a couple of In-N-Outs here and there, you got your Browns. You got some good choices. As to you even got a couple of Culvers in the Dallas-Fort Worth. So no lack of fast food burgers. Well, the problem is, Whataburger can reign king until someone else comes in and has a better burger. And anyone wants to look me in the face and tell me McDonald's has a better burger than Whataburger, you're high. Period. Like, not even going to, entertain it. It's just no.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Yeah, no. There are people that I was watching one of my favorite YouTube channels to watch. I watch Donut Operator. I think he's hysterical, and he was trying to say that In-N-Out is better than Whataburger, and everyone tells me Five Guys rules the roost. I had Five Guys in Florida. It was crap. Wouldn't go back there unless someone basically bought me a burger, and maybe there would be redemption day. But yeah, I'm not gonna go out of my way for that. you're only going to be sitting there as long as no one provides a superior product at your price point or a cheaper price point. And when you start getting into the cheaper price points, if it's even remotely comparable, people will probably concede because they want to save those couple of pennies. That's just the way we are. So at 75% female, I would love to see where those pockets are and to see if they're by region, by state, by city, where we have places that are below that number. That statement was about funeral directors made by mortuary lift company CEO Katie Hill. Number seems a bit high, Katie. Just going to say it. The Gazette business article was about the mortuary lift company, its history, products, and base of operations in the Cedar Rapids area. It was interesting to me that Hill, a one-time working fourth-generation funeral director, realized back in the 1980s that the position of funeral director brought a lot of lifting with it. I got to take my hat off for that. I am glad. I am glad that someone realized that the position of funeral director has a lot of lifting in it.
Oh my God.
I am glad. Hill's realization of the lifting aspect of being a funeral director led her to purchasing a mechanical lift company in 1987. Eventually, she moved that company to Cedar Rapids, where they are busy not only building ceiling-attached lifts for the funeral profession, but other products as well. You can read more about the company in the linked article. Okay, let's go take a look at that article, shall we? My Biz, Mortuary Lift Company, helps funeral directors make lifts with ease. Lift equipment helps funeral directors work safely worldwide. FYI, if you buy something like this, keep it maintained, okay? It's probably a hell of an expenditure, and then if you're just not going to go ahead and keep it maintained, you're basically wasting your cash. Sort of problem you wouldn't think about unless you're the one dealing with it. When people die at home, you got to lift them to move them, Katie Hill said. If they die at a hospital, you got to lift them there. In the funeral home, you got to lift them to get dressed. It's hard lifting and it's super awkward. Yeah, especially if it's unembalmed. I mean, not wrong. Eyes are burning a little bit. Hill, 59, went to work at her family's funeral home, the fourth generation to do so in Gurnee, Illinois, a year or two out of college after working briefly in advertising. A summer of backpack across Europe left her $2,000 in debt, so she got a degree in mortuary science and joined the family business. Solid. I realized pretty quickly that I could not lift a dead body, and there's a lot of lifting of dead bodies, she said. Hill's father knew of a California funeral home that had a lift installed in the ceiling-mounted tracks built by a company that made boat hoists. He called the company. He said, "Can you make me one of these lifts?" Hill said. They said, "No, but you want to buy the company. Just buy the inventory." I didn't have the $2,000, so I had to pay him back. It took a while. We got the plans and said, can you put one of these together? And that's how it went. Despite a slow start, 1987 proved a fortune time for Hill's new mortuary lift company. The industry has changed, she said. It's now over 75% female. The funeral home industry has gone the way of every industry. Not every industry, I think, is female-dominated, if that's what the implication is. It got brought up and it's publicly traded on the stock exchange. Now they're worried about workman's comp. No one is lifting bodies by hand anymore. I went to trade shows and I completely changed an industry. There are plenty of places to lifting bodies by hand, yo. Just saying. Hill and her husband Tim Hill, now an attorney with Bradley and Riley firm, moved their family to his native Cedar Rapids in 1998. He was gone every weekend until 10 at night, she said. He said, "I want to be around my kids," and we made a lifestyle change. The company stayed in Chicago until 2007 when Hill moved it to the historic Cherry Building in the Newbo neighborhood a few months before the 2008 flood. "We moved out by Hawkeye Downs for 6 months and moved back," Hill said. "This is a great building. In Chicago, I was located in a building that looked exactly like this. When I looked at this building, it had the same feel, and sure enough, all these things fit in here. After subcontractors bend and weld steel components into shape, they're delivered via the Cherry Building's original freight elevator to Mortuary Lift's second-floor shop, where 10 employees bolt them together and add the electric lifting motors and controls. We sell internationally, although tariffs have cost some recent orders. People die all over the globe." Yep. People die. Wherever there are people, people die. "And I'm the only one making lift equipment for the funeral home." Orders are designed to fit the customer's space with costs ranging between $15,000 to $20,000. It's probably the cost of one back surgery, and they're aware of that. Not wrong. And forget the lost revenue for timeout and all the rest of that. From its original gantry lift bolted to the ceiling, Hill and her staff developed a portable lift that can be wheeled about the work area. A more recent development, the stepper is an electronically assisted dolly for workers collecting a body for transport. Okay. I mean, dude, I'd try it. I'd try it to try it. Looks pretty cool. How are you carrying 250 pounds up and down stairs? Hill said. It's really awkward on a stretcher. Right now we've got a prototype, and I've talked to the patent attorney. 250 pounds in Texas. I think that's like the average 10-year-old. So might need to put some more reinforcement for those Texas orders. Just saying. The tug-along, a portable electric winch that anchors to a vehicle's seatbelt mounts, has promise beyond the funeral industry. Okay. Hunters, ambulances, guys who have those ATVs putting them in the back of their trucks. Hill said guys who have water heaters and heavy hardware trying to get them in the back of a van. We're finding there's lots of applications for that, so that's developing. They're still trying to launch because we're working on social media and we're a small company. I mean, legit, I would probably buy something like that to load stuff into my truck bed. Legit, I was trying to think about how to do something. There's some auctions that are going on. Speaking of which, I should probably check on that. Oh boy. Yeah, I was looking at at an auction here in Texas because I want to buy some inexpensive stuff for my patio to go with my grill and my smoker and things like that. And am I burned? Nope, I got an hour. Cool. So my biggest concern is, okay, if I do end up winning one of these items that I am looking at, how the hell am I going to get it on my truck? Because my back isn't that good for precisely this reason, which moving bodies is fine. Moving caskets is still where injury occurs. So I'd be interested in something like that for funeral directors. Competitors have challenged Hill's company, but not for long. I've taken them all out of business, she said. Every competitor that comes in the business, I always win. We have a terrific product. There's no built-in obsolescence. We don't have any warranty issues because we build a quality product. I stand behind it, and it's a small industry. If they have an issue, they talk to me. Someone thinks highly of themselves. So, hey, you know, if Mrs. Hill over here is having a grand old time and she is the king of the hill, that's great. At some point in time, kings get dethroned, so I'd watch out about that. Funeral Director Daily Take. This is another great American success story built out of an idea to improve the work of an individual. Yeah, I really like the one that clicks in the seatbelts and pull people in. God, can you imagine the fun you could have screwing with people with that? Just like they're passed out drunk or something, you just go ahead and you wire them in and you start pulling them in towards your car or something. That'd be awesome. This is why I can't have nice things. There are hundreds or more than likely thousands of those stories in the annals of American business success. Hill's thought process is, I realized pretty quickly that I could not lift a dead body, and there's a lot of lifting of dead bodies when she became a funeral director led to this success. And yeah, now she's also not waking up at awkward hours of the morning to do first calls and stuff like that. So there are some benefits to taking a chance on a business and letting it run. Do one or two more articles. Chat, feel free to drop stuff in there. In the past month, part of my thoughts have been at the intersection of education and grief, and it's brought me to a way of thinking that maybe the two thoughts need to go together. Yeah, we've been teaching that stuff for a long time, man. You see, during my time as a board member of the University of Minnesota, I worked to get a student-led initiative about having a class on financial literacy become part of the base. Required core of curriculum course that every student needed to graduate. Aw, dude. Come on. You know that politicians aren't going to go for that. The more you know how to run your own cash, the less you need them. It came from a foundation which students told me, and I'm paraphrasing here, the university does a great job preparing us to go out into the world, and we make a great living, but no one tells us how to manage the income that we earn. What if I told you, okay, what if I told you your parents should be teaching you something like that. Yeah. Thank you, Mom. Thank you, Dad. I came to the conclusion that if we taught students about taxes, interest, mortgages, automobile payments, savings plans, and more, we would have a society not only where citizens were more apt to make wise financial decisions, but people would be much more aware of how the votes they cast in elections affect their purchasing power and financial future. I recently made a call to the provost, the position in charge of the academic side of the college, who was in her last week on the job, which is the best time to have meaningful conversations, just saying. I had helped hire her and got to know her when I was the chair of the academic mission committee for 2 years. I had asked her how financial literacy had fared in the new curriculum proposals, and she let me know the entire proposal had been voted down by the faculty.
Oh, come on!
Okay? Absolutely. 100%. Not shocked. Not shocked at all. And it's probably because most faculty are not financially literate. I hate to say that, but I would absolutely step out. Feel free to disagree with me and blow up the chat and, let me have it. Blow up the comments after when this video goes live or gets stored on YouTube, because they absolutely would not want to do something like that. And I don't understand why. Okay, I don't understand why. All you have to be able to do to effectively do this, be able to balance your own checkbook, not be in debt. Again, one of the reasons why I think that a faculty component should be part of the decision but should not always be the decision. And looking at something like the University of Minnesota, is it any small wonder why people are looking at higher education and going, y'all are nuts. Okay, y'all are nuts. Why would you not want your students learning about financial literacy? And I can tell you, if you're waiting till, this is me personally, and I know this is going to probably cause some problems. Why the hell are you waiting till college? You should be putting financial literacy in high school. Okay, I'm not saying bring back. I didn't have home economics at my school, so I can't really say what should be in a home ec class. But there should be something that teaches people as they are getting ready to go to college that, hey, maybe paying $300,000 or $400,000 for that degree in literary studies that turns into a professorship that pays $55,000 a year to start might not be a worthwhile investment. Just saying. That might be a threat. Ladies and gentlemen, we have royalty with us. Dr. Mark Evely at Wayne State University has entered the chat. What's going on, dude? Why does a well-informed consumer who is environmentally minded choose natural organic reduction over green burial? Y'all can tell that I finally figured out how to get the Stream Deck thing going. It only took me a year and a half to figure out that there's actually something called a multi-action. You have to add delays, and the delays make things happen. So now Professor Finn's new toy of this supersized Stream Deck that apparently the cord is too short. I can't bring it up to camera. Let me tell you what, this is phenomenal. First thing is I would challenge well-informed. If they don't know the difference between natural organic reduction versus green burial, that might be one thing. There might be people assuming it is the same thing. And here it comes. I think this is the equivalent of measuring male reproductive organs for people trying to be green.
Emotional, damn it!
Seriously. I'm going to be so green that you're not just going to wrap me in cotton and drop me in a hole. You're going to drop me in a box and you're going to compost me. So the next big technology will be even more green, where, I don't know, you compost someone and then you drop that. You put that soil in an arid area so you can start like terraforming the desert or something. I have no idea, but I think that that's probably the case, that they are they shouldn't be competing technologies, and yet they are. They're both serving the same exact thing. Going back to the going back to the burger analogy I just made, right? If I want to go get a burger, I can drive 20 minutes towards Rockwall, 30 minutes towards Rockwall, and I've got every burger joint that I've mentioned. I got McDonald's, I got like a dozen Whataburgers, I got an In-N-Out, I got a Culver's, I got a Freddy's, I got some other damn fool place I got a burger from that was pretty good. I don't even remember the name, and that's actually closer than all the rest except for basically the Whataburger and a McDonald's, and a Burger King, and a Jack in the Box. Yeah, Texans are fat because reasons. So what is the competition of, like, why do people have to say, oh, I Five Guys is absolutely the best, I won't eat anything other than Five Guys? Like, if you're doing that, you're not just treating yourself. Dude, it's a burger, it's fast food, period. It's fast food. If I wanted actual hamburger, I would drive my fat ass over to Walmart, I would buy myself some 80/20 ground chuck, I would then season the meat, I would probably form it into patties, I would let it sit in the fridge overnight, and then cut my veggies. I'm not going to bake my own bread because I'm way too damn lazy for that, but I would absolutely drive my butt down to Eatsy's, which is a nice little Italian bakery shop sort of thing. If I'm feeling really bougie, I'll drive down to, I forget what mall it is. They have an Eataly over there. And I got to admit, walking through Nordstrom's to get to the Italian deli, it has a certain je ne sais quoi to it, because it feels like I'm actually buying like a designer loaf of bread. But the bread's pretty damn good. Their ciabatta rocks. That's the best damn burger I'm going to get. I'm not going to get it going to one of these other places and have someone make it for me. I'm literally going to make it exactly the way that I like it. So that's my beef. As I would just say that that's just good old fashioned measuring as to what's more green. Yeah, and oh my God. The fun part about this, and again, here comes the big diss. Don't they put the natural organic reduction folks into plastic boxes in order to compost them? Yeah. Like, if I recall, they got these big cylinders or these big boxes that are made out of non-organic material. They drop people in there, and you have to have that. So either that's made out of metal, which means you had to mine it, or you made it out of plastic, which, oh yeah, got to use formaldehyde to form plastics. What was I thinking? Yeah. So, hey, you know what? Ultimately, if people are comfortable with the technology, I'm sitting here trashing all the, doing what I usually do, which is, trash the hypocrisy of green burial because, I don't know, it makes me happy in my little life, to point out hypocrisy in general. By all means, do it. Okay? There are people that absolutely love the idea of it. By all means, you should do it. 100%. But at no point should you shame other people for what they want to do to dispose of their dead. If we're looking for the most economically or most eco-friendly way of disposing of a body, it's not even green burial. That requires sweat and effort to dig a hole. Drag them out to the field, let the buzzards have them. Good old sky burial, baby. 100%. No one ever mentions sky burial because it's like, yo, sky burial, you over here somewhere?
Hello there.
There's sky burial. So why would you not want to do that? Zero carbon footprint. You're feeding the local wildlife, which, hey, we like Golden Corral. They like that version of Golden Corral. Let the buzzards have some chow. But oh my God, that's so disrespectful. The Tibetans do it. I can't remember. Isn't it Zoroastrianism that does sky burial too? That's one of those quote unquote fringe religions we don't really spend a lot of time on in funeral service school. But I think Zoroastrianism does sky burial, which, again, very eco friendly. Very eco friendly. On to grief. As many of you might know, uh, I like that. So, my financial literacy ideas for students were back to square zero. And on to grief. As many of you know, in roughly the last month, the past Speaker of the House of Minnesota, Representative Melissa Hortman, was assassinated. Yep. That's unfortunate. I can't say I was a friend of the Speaker, that I even knew her well. However, University of Minnesota board members are selected by the legislature, and getting known by them helps one's chances for success. I remember encountering Rep. Hortman in a stairwell in the state office building. I wanted to get an appointment with her to push my candidacy, and she heard something like the following to me: "No need. I've read your bio and heard from others. I'll be voting for you," and she ended up doing so. I suppose if, we're right back to, I suppose if we're going to be going into, if you have to have a politician, at least let it be a politician like that actually knows something that they're talking about, does their own research, and is like, yeah, I like this person, I can support that. Cool deal, pickle. Away we go. So while we probably didn't have the same political ideals, I can say she was honest, forthright, and ethical in her short discussion with me. Yeah, all 30 seconds. God, I hate throwing shade, but it just writes itself, folks. When I heard of the assassination news, the moment in the stairwell immediately came back to me and shook me to the soul. Yeah, forget the fact it's an assassination. Dr. Evely asks, GOAT, Hulkster or Macho Man? Macho Man 100%. Macho Man 100%. So I've told people this story. I tell some of my students. I don't think I've ever done it on my channel. And it's not even a quick decision for me. It's kind of like that discussion you and I had where you posed the question, greatest singer of all time. And I dropped Freddie Mercury, check out if you don't agree. And you're like, Roy Orbison. And again, I see merit in Roy Orbison. It's a hell of a voice. Hell of a voice. Grew up singing all of his stuff. Like, Runaway was probably one of my favorite karaoke songs between the ages of like 18 to 30, when I could still sing falsetto without killing myself. So, I used to work at Hess gas stations, and they had a couple different concepts, right? They had the little green stores, and they had something called Hess Express, which was like their newest C-store orientation back in the 90s. And in St. Petersburg, Florida, there's 66th Street, which connects to Tyrone Boulevard, 22nd Avenue North, and that's where Tyrone Square Mall and Best Buy is. Now, all the big wrestlers, Macho Man, Hulk, at least one of the Road Warriors, a bunch of them, they all live in Clearwater, specifically Bel Air Bluffs, like the bougie section of Clearwater. So they would drive down to St. Pete for various reasons, whatever. And for whatever reason, a lot of them would stop by that gas station I worked at. So during my time working at Hess for like the year and a half, 2 years I was there, Hulk walked in, Macho Man walked in, Undertaker walked in. I think those were the three big ones that I saw with some frequency. And I think it had something to do with the fact that one of the only Kentucky Fried Chickens in the area was like right there. I don't think there was one in Clearwater at the time. So if someone was digging some KFC, I joke you not. This, I'm telling you, I'll drive to my my favorite fast food 100%. I wouldn't even think about it. If it's an hour and a half drive, I am telling you that there is a place past Dallas into Fort Worth, right where I got my truck, that serves sliders. And they're some of the best damn sliders I've had. I will absolutely drive an hour and 45 minutes if I'm craving sliders from that place to go get them. The only other place I know of is something over near Central Market in basically downtown Dallas. That's about an hour and 15. So if I'm feeling lazy and I want to fix, that's where I go for my sliders. We don't have a White Castle, so I ain't getting no White Castle here in Texas. I think there is one, but it's around near Houston or some crap. So anyways, back to the story. Um, I'm not one of those guys who likes harassing people for autographs. And also, I just don't like intruding. Like, I see how people rush people of celebrity. And I don't know, I've never wanted to be that guy. And back in those days, I mean, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have portable cameras. No, we had those little disposable ones we could take pictures of. But I'm not going to carry those things in a pocket hoping I bump into a wrestler. But I remember one time Macho Man walked in and he was absolutely swarmed by some of the employees. And I kind of felt bad because it's like, dude, he just wants to get his gas, grab a big gulp, get the hell gone. Like, let's give the guy some peace. So at that time, I was moonlighting between the gas station job and being a singing waiter. There was a restaurant in Clearwater called Homestyle Harmony. And at that restaurant, everyone kind of had their own shtick. And my shtick was the Phantom of the Opera. I've always told people that one of the songs I sang and make the most money off of was singing Music of the Night from Lloyd Webber's Phantom of the Opera. And I got to admit, lots of people came to that singing restaurant. And we got invited to sing everywhere. I got to sing a holiday event at Scientology Central, right off of Fort Harrison. Um, got to meet David Miscavige. I sang for just about every Italian American club in St. Petersburg and in Clearwater. And it got my name out and about, like it really did. So one day, I'm in an Albertsons grocery store. For those of you who don't have Albertsons, it's it's a relatively popular chain here in the South. And there's this guy that's kind of scoping me out, and I'm with my girlfriend. And this guy's creeping me out. And in my youth, I don't like getting creeped out. And I will absolutely throat chuck you through a wall if you're creeping me out because, yo, something's not right. And I'll still do it. I'll just do it slower and I'll hurt my back afterwards. But, I'll absolutely, I don't go for that sort of stuff. Stalking is not a thing. So this guy's following me around the grocery store. And I come from a loss prevention background. You don't want to be doing stuff like that. Like, that's the type of stuff I notice. I don't like it. Is this some guy I busted his kid for shoplifting one day? Like, what's going on with this? So I tell my girlfriend that, hey, is this guy really following us the way he's doing? Or am I just being paranoid? And she's like, yeah, this is kind of creepy. So we're walking down one of the aisles and we're looking for whatever the hell we were looking at. And I see this guy literally peeking up the side of the end cap. And I'm like, you have got to be kidding me.
We have a problem. We have a problem. Ladies and gentlemen, we have problems.
So this guy's about to really get his ass kicked. And next thing I know, he comes walking up and I'm telling my girlfriend, listen, you just run to the front, you find the manager because I am literally going to feed this guy his own ankles. So now I'm turning and I'm getting pumped up because, oh yeah, we're going to have us a little rough and tumble. Haha, game on. And he goes, are you the Phantom? And I am completely deflated because I don't know how to respond to that. This guy is inches away from literally getting punched in the throat. Are you the Phantom? Yeah. And he yells at the top of his lungs, Mom, it's him. And I'm like, this guy literally does not know how close he came to being put in a coma. Next thing I know, I am talking to his mother over in the produce section. I walk back over with him, and his mom wants my signature, blah, blah, blah. She wants to talk about how much she loves the restaurant, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, I'm sitting here, still, the adrenaline is screaming through me because fight or flight has absolutely kicked in, and now I'm trying to, like, come down off of that. So I'm in my gas station, and Randy walks in. And the first time Randy came in, where there's not an entourage of people flooding him, he walks up and basically I told him, hey man, Mr. Hess thanks you for a lifetime of great childhood memories. Anytime you want something from the grab and go or you want something from the fountain, that's taken care of if I'm here. Anything you get out of the coolers, I got to charge you for that because that's inventory. But the other stuff, absolutely don't worry about it. So every time he'd walk in, Macho Man, how you doing, sir? Good to see you. And that was it. I never gave him shit, never got photos, never got an autograph, none of that crap. So Randy comes in. Macho Man, how you doing, sir? Hey, good to see you, brother. Everything going okay? Yeah, man, everything's great. That's, I mean, just typical, right? And so he comes up, he's checking out, and he's about to leave it go, Macho Man, if you got a second, I got a question for you, brother. And he goes, yeah, Joe, what you got? So I explained the situation, what happened in the grocery store. And I said, man, I don't pretend to be like at your level, like of all the stuff that happens to you. But that freaked me out, dude. Like, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with just all of that? Back then, I didn't know that there was a word like paparazzi or something. And so he just smiles and starts laughing. He's like, Joe, you just got to remember, you're nothing without your fans, brother. You're nothing without your fans. And so I stopped and I thought about that for a second. I said, Randy, you know, you didn't have to take the time to take my question or answer that, and I really appreciate that you did that. And that means a lot to me. And thank you so much for taking the time. Because, you know, there's that little moment of humanity that I realized that, you know, this guy's got it so much friggin' worse than I do. And he's willing to sit there and tell me, hey, dude, you just got to keep yourself grounded. Remember, if it wasn't for them, you wouldn't have that. So I left Hess a couple of months later. I went to go work at Best Buy. And I've been at Best Buy probably 8 or 9 months by this point. So, you know, a lot of time has passed since I've been at Hess. And I'm working the front desk. I'm loss prevention at Best Buy. I'm wearing the yellow shirt. I don't even know if I still have yellow shirt loss prevention at Best Buy. Last several times I've walked in, they don't even have, they got the kiosk, but they don't have like a yellow shirt loss prevention guy. So I'm sitting there and Randy Savage walks in. And I haven't seen him in, you know, a year or something. So I look over and, you know, he's looking over towards the right, looking for computers, trying to get the lay of the land for whatever he's looking for, because these guys, I guess, would come in all the time and buy DVDs and movies and crap. So Randy walks in and I go, Macho Man! Hey, brother, how you been? Haven't seen you in a while. You doing okay? And here's the cool part. This is why Randy's my goat, ride or die forever. Randy looks over at me and he goes, Joe, hey, man, how you been? Yeah, I'm doing good. Dude, how are you doing? Here's the big thing. Because I was in loss prevention at Best Buy, my name tag read Finney. I never used my real name on any of my Best Buy name tags because I didn't want anyone to know my real name. Just like if you walk in, I don't like having my real name posted for places to see them because I know people are ridiculous, people are stupid, and people are creepy. So when they see your name up on something, they can try to, you know, hunt down where you live. Back then, swatting wasn't a thing. But nonetheless, people, you know, would stop by the house and do crappy things. So I never wanted my real name over there or on my name badge. Randy remembered my name, a gas station attendant. And I can tell you, when Hulk walked in, none of that. No interaction whatsoever. In and out the door. Same thing with Undertaker. In and out the door. And I don't fault them for that. I don't fault them for that at all. Because they're constantly getting peppered by people. They're constantly being harassed. After that little moment with Randy, I was walking out of a Tucson's, which was basically like a Chili's. And as I'm walking out, Randy's having dinner in one of the back tables, and I'm walking by and I see him. And I have my girlfriend with me. And as I'm walking by the table, I said, Macho Man, how you doing, sir? Hey, brother, enjoy your dinner. It's good to see you. Have a nice night. Yeah, man. Oh. So I always try to respect the fact that, these guys are just absolutely harassed all the time. But Macho Man, I don't know, man. He was just he treated me like a human being when he didn't have to, right? And the fun part is, as I talked to other people that had interactions with him and whatnot, that's who he was. Like, genuinely, the guys that are just doing the road work for professional wrestling, he's treating them like human beings. It's just the type of guy that he was. So Randy Savage, GOAT. No ifs, ands, or buts, man. No ifs, ands, or buts. Aaron, good evening. How are you? Aren't you also classically trained in German opera? I classically trained in opera, period. So I sang German, sang French, sang Italian, sang some Spanish. I think I sang Spanish once. Latin. As I was finishing my master's degree, I was thinking about doing something in Welsh because a buddy of mine in grad school, Casey Cook, who is now Dr. Cook, is the director of choral studies at American University. He went to Wales for I think a week or two, and he came back and he did a presentation on Welsh music and their culture and their language and how to pronounce it. And I got it in my head that I wanted to do some Welsh stuff for a recital, just because no one else had done it. I was going to do that. Might have even done a little bit of Russian at one point. Then got out of music, went into funeral directing, and that was kind of that was it. But yeah, I think I sang, well, when you do recitals for college, you essentially have to do all of the classic languages. So you're going to have a German piece, you're going to have a French piece, you're going to have an Italian piece, you're going to have an English piece. And from there, you're going to spend most of your time on those foreign languages. So you're not going to be singing a whole lot of English. You're going to be singing mostly German, French, Italian. And if you're any good at what you're doing, they're probably going to make you sing more German and French than Italian or English, because those are the harder languages, quote unquote, to sing in. Absolutely love singing in French. I hated it to start, but I love singing it later. Doing well. That makes sense. I thought I remembered you saying you did German. Yeah, I did. I think for my graduate recital, I did several selections from Schumann's Liederkreis. There's some great music in there. Like, some great music in there. Oh man, what was the one? Waldigesprach, I think, is the one that I enjoy singing the most, because it has to do with a writer who is riding through the woods, and he sees this lovely woman, and the song goes back and forth between the writer and the woman. Like, he's trying to get laid. He's trying to pimp out on her. And then it turns out that she's basically, the goddess of death. She's Lorelei. And the problem is, if you meet Lorelei on a road in the woods, you're basically stuck for life. Like, you're that's it. She owns you. And the cool part about that song is you start with, him trying to mac all over her, and she's trying to be like, dude, move along, okay? Bugger off. And then he pushes the issue, and yeah, when you poke the bear, you poke the dragon, you get the fire. That's exactly what happens. And I just love that song on so many levels, because you get to play the Pimp Mac Daddy, and then you have to try to play like this sweet maiden, but the entire time you know who you are, and then you have to give that warning. So, like, you can put some serious venom into that, where it's like, yeah, you move on, and if not, you're really gonna regret it, man. And then you're back to being the Pimp Mac Daddy, and then all of a sudden you realize who it is you're talking to and what's about to happen, and then it's just absolute boss god mode, because that's who you are. And now it's too damn late, and your ass is mine. Great song. Love it. Absolutely phenomenal. I would perform it again in a heartbeat if I got invited to do like a faculty recital again. So there we go with the wrestling. I will have to say, if we're going to start doing goats, I would have to say Ozzy is my goat for metal. I don't think there's anyone like maybe God, what's his name? Dude from ACDC, the head guy there. I listened to a lot of ACDC back in the day. Loved ACDC. Problem is he got fried. Like his voice was destroyed. Um, Ozzy sounded good up until he passed. Like I finally pulled the video when he passed. I pulled that video of that concert he just did, and let me tell you what, for a guy that's in his 80s, that sang metal his entire life, that was doing like every drug known to mankind, Ozzy was absolutely level 99 hidden boss. Like, powerful. Yeah, if you look hard enough, you can actually find like my graduate recital stuff on YouTube. It's on my old channel. I got a bunch of my stuff from my graduate recital on there. I think it's Valdiga. You know what? This is going to piss me off if I don't... Yeah, it is Waldgespräch. I said Sprachgespräch. Waldgespräch. Yeah. Great song. Great song. Bryn Tervel's a great singer. Bryn Tervel's a great singer. So if you want probably a pretty good version of that, I would say that he's a good one to listen to. But yeah, great song cycle. Great song cycle. That's the one thing that I will absolutely admit. I really did not appreciate the classical music I was singing when I was doing it. It was something that had to be done because that's what you did. Afterwards, when I was finishing up grad school and kind of transitioning out of that, really started to find the spirit, the soul of all that stuff in there. Wasted years. And I'm frustrated because there's no way in hell I'd ever be able to go back and get a DMA, like a Doctor of Musical Arts. I don't have the repertory. I don't have the time. Like that would be quite the effort that I just don't have the time to spend. Recently, the editor of the Hortman assassination was printed in the Minnesota Star and Tribune. The writer said, "I am grieving a country that has become numb to cruelty, a nation where the capacity to care is treated as a partisan liability, where empathy is mocked, where decency is dismissed as weakness, and where powerful are not met with respect but with violence." I would agree with that. I do agree with a country that has become numb to cruelty, where it's kind of an expectation that if you don't subscribe to the same political party, if you don't subscribe to my thought, words equal violence, that sort of stuff. I don't mean to suggest that words cannot be violent and words cannot be hateful or spiteful, but I will absolutely die on the hill that just because a person says something that differs from your opinion, like, oh my God, In-N-Out is so much superior than Whataburger, that should give me a cause to, break their jaw. Like, dude, it's a burger joint. What do I give a damn? Most recently, I was talking to a friend, and they got hung up on by a friend because they have the audacity to shop at Starbucks, and Starbucks supports Israel, hence you cannot drink coffee at Starbucks. And it was kind of like, you're joking, right? This person hung up on you just because of the fact that you choose to drink Starbucks. Like, have your positions. Absolutely have your positions and do what is morally correct for you. I can tell you that when I found out that Papa John was a trophy hunter, and Papa John was my favorite pizza, I did not touch another damn product until they ousted his ass from that company. I do not like trophy hunters. I am all about sustainable hunting and animal husbandry and controlling animal populations so that you're maintaining your wild. I am not about going and raising a giraffe so some dipshit can go ahead and pop it and then hang a head on the wall. I'm just not for stuff like that. I think that's irresponsible. And companies that do stuff like that, I'm simply not going to support. If you want to do it and you're comfortable doing it, that's fine. Just don't expect my dollars to flood in there. So I don't mean to say that people should not stand by their laurels and stand by their can't think of the word I'm looking for. Stand by their own ethics. But don't hate me because I'm not going to play that game. Like I'm just not going to get involved on that. If Starbucks disappeared overnight, I can't say that I would be impacted. Like, I could care less. Bad heart, I don't drink caffeine. When I do go to Starbucks, usually I get the same, useless drink that I get, usually a chai tea latte or something, which is more sugar than anything. So I wouldn't miss it if it disappeared. But that would put a hell of a lot of people out of a job. 100%. And every business is going to do something that upsets someone. Just like I can tell you, I won't shop at Hobby Lobby. I absolutely will not shop at Hobby Lobby. And not because they're Christian. I mean, I eat Chick-fil-A whenever I feel like eating Chick-fil-A. I won't shop with them because of the bullshit they pulled in law circles when their case got to the Supreme Court, and those chumps at the Supreme Court decided to say that a fictitious entity of a corporation assumes the religion of its primary owners. Like, that's the dumbest thing I have literally ever heard. Like, you could not tell me that that was absolutely just not a bought and paid for judicial decision, because it makes no sense. This thing literally does not exist except on paper. It cannot have a religion. End of damn story. And if you're going to offer healthcare, offer healthcare. Just because you as the owners are diametrically opposed to women having access to birth control pills should not mean that you have a right to exclude that from a healthcare plan for the sole giggles of, religious reasons. Dude, you don't have to take them. Of course, from, the capitalist in me is saying, all right, well, if you want to play that game, no one go work for them. The stores are going to close because they ain't got nobody. But people need jobs. There you go. So, there's always a catch. But what's my way of controlling it? I just don't. I don't shop there, and I can tell you, it's probably been years since I've walked into a Hobby Lobby. Absolutely, before I went to law school. Once I studied the Hobby Lobby case, that was it. Never walked in there again because I have nothing I need. So here I am at the intersection of education and grief. It's not a position unique to me, and former president of the National Association of Funeral Directors in Great Britain, John Adams, finds himself at the same spot. He had the opportunity to sit down with Mr. Adams at the United States NFDA convention in Baltimore in 2022 and learn more about his goals. I don't know if I met John. One of those goals is to unite education and grief by making a course on death, dying, and bereavement a required course in the British national curriculum. To that end, he has already had an audience with King Charles and last December addressed the members of Parliament on the subject, where he received his very positive responses. Here's the latest update on what is happening with his initiative. Ooh, you might take a peek at that. Back to financial literacy. I won't give my quest to get more people. I gotta refresh my. Yeah, still doing decent. It's not completely out of price yet. If I win with actually what I'm looking at, I'll post a picture of what it is. But again, it's going to go out in the back next to the grill. I won't give up my quest to get more people to understand the value of knowing finances and the ramifications of one's life on how they manage their finances, which is why if you're going to do that, you should probably take people out of the equation that don't do anything but teach it. Matter of fact, I think in the world we live in, there should be a lot more room to learn the soft science like bereavement and or financial literacy. Oh, they'll be all over you for bereavement. They'll be all over you for that. That's academic. Everyone and their dog has a thanatology degree. Everyone's promoting that sort of stuff. It's like, I don't know. It's the next Labubu for psychology, I think. Y'all disagree with it. Drop it in the chat. Drop it in the comments. Have at me. Like, fair game. And also, if you have actually managed to score a Labubu, drop that in the chat. Drop that in the comments. I got to admit, I had a... They got the fake ones, the Lafufus and the Zamomos. God, so stupid, right? And I actually made a proton pack that fits the silly things. And I just got the LEDs and some other crap I needed to put lights in it. So probably the next live stream, I will literally have either a fake Labubu or a real one with a proton pack. And to prove that point, I even have 3D printed the Ecto goggles. So I had one of these. I brought it with me to Jeffersonville for my employee retreat. And they ended up giving it to one of my employees' daughters, who's a big nerd for Ghostbusters. So she got a fake Labubu along with the initial prototype with no lights. Just, okay, this looks cool, proof of concept. Now let me figure out how to wire this damn thing. It has been years since I used a breadboard. Thank God for YouTube, because that's what I was doing last night before I went to bed, putting in my resistors and my LEDs and all that good stuff. You need to find a school that's simply going to say, you know what? Not even the school. You take it to the legislature. You take it to the legislature, and you have the legislature put it in as part of the core. And I say that knowing what a pain in the ass that absolutely is, because I went through something like that in Florida, where Governor Ron DeSantis, you know, the greatest governor in the history of the United States.
2 shots of vodka. Then
My boy Ronnie, the legislature went ahead and they updated core curriculum to unify it. Again, I didn't get involved in the politics of it. If the legislator votes on it and that's the way it's going to be, that's the way it's going to be. But that's the way you make that happen, Tom, is you just have the legislature step in and say, by the way, you are going to teach a course in financial literacy. And now you don't have a decision. So you can sit there, you can pout, you can lose your minds, you can write your letters of protest. Someone's going to teach the damn course. The only thing you need to decide is what is the credential that's going to be needed to do that. Preferably someone that, you know, has a credit. I'm telling you, if you're going to have someone teaching a financial literacy course, I am telling you, I don't think they need to have a degree in finance, but the minimum credit score they should have is probably 780. All right. If you're going to teach someone about financial literacy, you should not have, you need to have an excellent credit score with whatever it is, because you've demonstrated that you actually can do that. And yes, I could teach it. My credit score is above 780. Wasn't always like that. Took a lot of work to get it there. And now that it's there, I keep it there. Maybe if we can help with that education, our communities can understand the value of empathy and grieve with compassion when we lose our friends and neighbors. And maybe like John Adams and Great Britain's funeral directors who exhibit that capacity to care can lead the way. Again, getting people, I think, to buy into grief. There are plenty of people with those degrees, and that panders, I think, to the educational core. So I don't think you would have a hard time at all getting that added to a list of electives required for a general for a degree. And I'm going to say that with some certainty, because when I was finishing my bachelor's degree in music at the University of South Florida in 2004, the elective I took was life after death, because I knew I was going to go to mortuary school. Did I? Yeah, no, I didn't know at the time. I took it because I just thought it was better than taking whatever the hell other stupidity was on there. Which, again, electives are exactly that. They're meant to give you a well-rounded education. I thought that would be a cool class to take. But if they're putting that on there, I mean, dude, this was like a 150-person lecture hall, and it was filled to like at least 110 people. So the people will go and take it. And if we're talking about actually practical grief, yeah, I don't think you'd have a hard time getting that added to the electives. But financial literacy, there's nothing that plugs a degree. There's nothing, you don't get a degree in financial literacy. You get a degree in finance. And I don't think that's enough to stroke the egos of certain types of people who generally find themselves in academia. I like it. I'm a career educator at this point, and I talk shit about educators. It is what it is. What can I say? Merlinda, good evening. Can't wait to see my creation. Yeah, dude, I'm excited. Like, when I finally had the breadboard set up, that moment as I attached the leads to the batteries to have everything light up, wunderbar, man. It's like finishing up a Lego set. You're like, haha, my creation lives. Yeah, I can't wait to see how this thing looks actually inside the frame. It's gonna suck because Obviously, it's a very small thing. I don't have it in here. It's in the living room. I can just see trying to wire this is going to suck. Even with, I think I'm using 22 gauge wire. Yeah, 22 gauge wire, which is pretty damn small. After that, I have to go to like 30, and I can't see at 30. It's just my eyes are so bad that I'm just going to have too much of a hard time trying to solder that damn thing without burning holes through my own flesh. Which, yeah, I don't want to do that. I just don't want to do that. 7:55, folks. You know what? I think I am going to call it there. Unless anyone's got some stuff in the chat, go ahead and wrap it up. 2 hours passed quick. I was vastly unprepared for this Fridays with Finn, except for the lecture. I actually did not get a lot of emails. The conversations I've had with people have generally been giving them advice, answering their question. And one, absolutely, I'm still humbled that people take the time to send me a letter thanking me for my videos and how the content that I've provided has helped them through mortuary school. So for all of you, hey, big shout out to you guys, because I am nothing without my fans. And shout out to Jennifer, who is one of the most recent people over at SUNY Canton, to send me a thank you for everything. It's great chatting with you. Best of luck in that education. You're in good hands up there at SUNY Canton. I used to teach there. Professor Kane, Professor Penapent, top-notch people. You're going to get a great education if you stick through it. All right, folks. Everyone have themselves a good evening. I will see everyone sometime over in August when we do the next one of these with the new computer. So I am totally excited to get that thing up and running. Everyone have a good time. Peace out. Stay safe. We'll see you next time.